I want to introduce our first guest this evening. It's actually great to bring up a panelist that has some connection to some pre-professional career when you're talking about a UPenn function. Someone should mention Wharton or pre-med or engineering, something that your parents can lock into and say, there, that was the education, that was it. This guy got the education. He actually graduated from Penn and then became a doctor. But something in him must have said something like, go out and do something in entertainment. And he's actually approached it from both angles. The media and the medicine have combined in his career. He's the on-set medical advisor. He's done it on a number of television dramas. And most recently, this is now his second season, on ER. Please welcome Zach Lutsky, class of '97.
Yeah, this is kind of crazy. As I spent several years studying and cramming medicine into my head, I can't say I ever thought I'd be speaking at a Penn alumni event about entertainment. Who would have thought? So how did this come to be? Well, just to give you a little background. Let's see. Yeah, can you guys hear me a little bit? Yeah. All right. So, yes, I am actually a physician. I'm an emergency physician at Cedars-Sinai. And the way I'm working now is I do about half the month I'm on the set, and half the month I'm still doing clinical shifts. So how in the heck did that come to be? Because it certainly wasn't planned that way. I grew up in Los Angeles and was always passionate about television and film, and actually also musical theater. My father was a physician, his father was a physician, his brother was a physician, and his mother was a nurse. So there was just a little bit of pressure on me to become a doctor. And when I went to Penn, I was pre-med from the beginning. That was the plan. Although from the beginning, I was a little bit different than the typical pre-med student. I was actually a communications major, where I got to spend some time taking a couple film classes, working on my skills as a writer. And my biggest passion actually as an undergraduate, although I was pre-med and doing several other things, was musical theater. And acting, and actually in the 4 years of Penn I had the great opportunity to be in 9 musicals, which was a lot of fun and really crappy when you then try to apply to medical school, but they want to know why I wasted so much time, but I made it anyway. So I did that, and I made a very conscious decision as I was going through, although I really loved to death acting and performing and the entertainment business, that the safe thing to do, the smart thing to do, was to do my other passion, which I am passionate about, which is medicine. And so that was that. And after Penn, I went to medical school in Chicago, where I met my wife, who was also in grad school at the time, and came back out to Los Angeles, where I had grown up, as I mentioned, to do my residency at Harbor-UCLA, where I did emergency medicine residency. So I was a senior resident and was, very much set to just have a career in medicine. And 2 big things happened. The first thing was the Learning Channel created a show called Untold Stories of the ER. Has anybody ever seen that? Yeah? So here was a show that took real ER doctors and let them go play themselves on television. How perfect. So, of course, I jumped all over that and ended up doing 4 episodes of that show. And what that show was is they would sort of pre-screen you on the phone. If you had a cool story, they would bring you down and shoot you telling the story to an interviewer, and then they would take that interview and write a script about it and then do a reenactment. So that was a great experience, and I got to actually step on and be the star of an episode of television, which was crazy. That show ended up finishing, and the producers of that show, which is a group called GRB Entertainment, went and created a show called Diagnosis X, which was kind of the same thing with a different title. But what was cool then is because these were now sort of more technically medical shows, not only did I get to do what I'd done before, share stories and act in front of the camera, playing myself, which isn't that hard to do, but they also brought me on as their medical consultant. So I got to read all the scripts and revise them from the medical standpoint. So that was going on my senior year of residency, and something else happened that same year. ER has a team of writers, of course, and 2 of those writers are actually physicians. One of those 2 worked at Harbor-UCLA, where I was doing my training. And when I was a senior, they started bringing residents down to share/steal stories for future episodes. And again, because I was so passionate about the business, and also I've seen every episode of ER since the pilot, went down and did that a couple times, where I would sit in a circle with the writers, producers, and share cool stories I had in the emergency department, and really just sort of schmoozed as well as I could. Met the right people and got their names and phone numbers and email addresses. And that was that. And so for about the next year or so, I would send emails to the friends I had made and said, gosh, if there's anything you guys ever need, be it on the set or from the writing side, please let me know, because I'm dying to do this and I love the show. And finally, after months and several emails and everything else, they contacted me. What a lot of people probably don't know about ER is all of the medical scenes are written by doctors. And so if the script happens to be one of the 2 doctors, fine, they write the whole script, but all the other scripts, the medical scenes are actually written by a handful of physicians. And they needed some help doing that, and they called me up and said, any interest? I said, of course. And so I did that for a few episodes in the beginning of season 14, which was last season, and had a great time. And all of a sudden, season 13, and then all of a sudden going into season 14, right before they were going to begin shooting, after they hiatus, one of their on-set technical advisors, who had been doing the show for 10 seasons, left to go do another medical show. And they called him and said, do you have any interest? And of course I said, yeah, that sounds amazing. So since that time, as I mentioned at the beginning, I've been sort of splitting my life. And what's cool about emergency medicine is it does let you do things like this. I can pick and choose when and how I work.